Well, the fear greed index is back to 29, and the Qs have lost that all important 420 support line. SpaceX is trying to rally off of its opening print from last week. Nvidia is taking it on the chin, down almost 3.5% today. 10-year Treasury is testing 4.5% again, and the VIX is up over 10% today alone. The last 2 weeks have not been good for me. So I'm going to talk about today the levels that I'm watching and what it's going to take for me to get long again in this market. A lot to talk about, so let's just jump right in. So let's actually start. I was going to start with the Qs, but let's start with SanDisk first, because I think that tells an interesting story. And we'll start with the daily. This pattern yesterday was what's referred to as a shooting star and an orphaned island. I don't know. I've heard it referred to a couple different things. Definitely a capitulation type of print, and as you can see, it was on lower volume, which was not good. And this more or today's confirmation of what's 13% downdraft to SanDisk is meaningful. It's meaningful, and you can see in Micron as well. Same sort of pattern occurred yesterday, and today's confirmation again that and that's what is today. Today's a 12, almost 13% to the downside as well. Next level of support in Micron, and Micron reports earnings this week, tomorrow, I believe, after the bell. Support is around 850. That's going to prove to be an interesting place to see if how it does with earnings. It needs to save the chips. Micron needs to deliver the earnings of a lifetime tomorrow. Now, jumping back to the Qs, I'll tell you what I want to see happen here. I'm hopeful. Well, you can see in today's action, the Qs are down 3%, and it's about 2:15 as I record this, dropping this 420 support line that was so important. The next level of support is around 693. I do want to see the Qs come down to that. I want to see it print down around 695 to 692, somewhere in that area, and look for a bounce. And it's hope that we see some type of W pattern form here for an attempt back up. Seasonally, and the fact that this is a off-year election cycle does not bode well for the market going into the end of June and July. We'll see what happens, but historically, this is a very bleak period for the market. So I won't touch anything until I see some type of reversal down here in the mid 690s, if you will. Now, admittedly, we've gotten some things right over the last couple weeks. It hasn't been all doom and gloom. And I called this at Palantir back maybe a week ago, maybe this past weekend. I don't remember now. I said, look, this looks like distribution going into what should have been support. And it dropped it and has now come down to its next support line, which is about 118, 117.50, let's call it. It looks like it's trying to make an attempt on that today as well. Look, Palantir looks ugly here. And I think the the interesting thing here is if it closes below that support, and ultimately Palantir needs to bounce here. It's at the 0.5 fib level, and a drop of that could take this all the way down to the 95 area. If you've watched this channel, you know that I'm not a fan of Palantir first and foremost, but I think there's a more than reasonable chance that this comes all the way back down sometime this year to hit 65. And that would be certainly 80 is the next level. 65, somewhere between there, I think would be could be in the cards for Palantir. Now, I say all that with a recognition that I have a bias against this company, so take it for what it's worth. But what the chart says right now is that there's much more room to go. I do think we'll get a bounce here in the next couple days. I would not be surprised. The RSI is down a lot. The MACD is down a lot. I would not be a buyer of puts at this point. The time to do that was a drop and a retest of the 128 yesterday morning. But it's interesting. This fan favorite cult type company is really taking it on the chin right now. What is one that I dropped a lot yesterday, and I think is at a very interesting place to buy puts is Google. So this is Class A Google, and yesterday it printed a horrible candle. It was down 5%. I think I read that Google's loss yesterday was the worst it's had in a year, um, and it opened. It gapped down today on the open. Let me move this to the hour so you can see it. And I've been watching it off and on all day today, but it yesterday's move brought it down below and it rallied back up above what was support. And so even with this move yesterday, which would have been very difficult to catch because there's no real obvious setup going into the close on Friday on this. So, you'd be forced to sit on the sidelines and watch it. It did on big volume go below support yesterday. It rallied back above that. It gapped down this morning and attempted to rally back above that. But as of, again, it's about 215 or so now, 220. That does not seem to be holding. This is an interesting place to buy puts, and indeed, I've jumped on this a little bit this afternoon with a starter set of puts that expire at the end of this week, and I'm looking for a close today or an open tomorrow below 345 to stay in that. The reason being here is because number one, it's breaking support as we speak, as I record this, and the next level down is about 331. So it's got some ways to go to the downside to hit that next support line. And we'll see if it can do it this week. It needs to close though above that support to nullify what I'm talking about, and our resistance now of 347. What I have is 347.14, representing the open, by the way, of what day was that? April 29th. Another one we got really right was CRM to the downside. It's this was last week, and I think I mentioned it in a week ago Sunday's video, watching this to the downside. Once it broke the support line of through 165, then it was clear sailing down to just below 150. The ultimate place to have bought this puts on this would have been over 210, but there was no structure there to build to trade it off of. So there's a couple setups here along the way. Now, if you look at it in its entirety, yesterday's candle was a reversal pattern that's being confirmed today. Interestingly enough, I read that someone bought $750,000 worth of $160 call options on CRM yesterday, which so they're clearly playing it for a bounce. It's an interesting play and especially given this reversal. The MACD is way down. It's bouncing off of oversold territory for the RSI. So, in summary, I think CRM can go down below 130 to its next level of support. It just needs to build structure now to do it. And maybe this is a bounce back to the upside to test it at a minimum, to test that 165. Once it does test 165, then it'll be real interesting to see what it does at that point, and I'll be watching it then. But there's nothing to do here on that one other than for me to brag that I got one right over the last week or two. I'll tell you what, though, what's interesting is it's really difficult right now to find setups that are worth trading off of. I'm going to give you, well, I gave you Google a second ago. That's to the downside. That's one that looks interesting here. Another one that's starting to look interesting is Fortinet, or as I like to call Fortnite, because that would make my son proud of me for saying Fortnite. I'm looking for a daily close above 149. We have two attempts at it. and both failed. Um, we got great volume on Thursday of last week. The it's building a base here, but it needs to confirm with the close over that. We don't think we're going to get it today. We'll see about to the rest of the week how that shapes up. But I want to see a close above that. That's about the only thing I'm finding right now that meets my criteria for trading other than Google to the downside. Traditionally when I have a tough time finding stock setups to trade off of, it means something, and it's the market just typically when I'm at that point, it sort of meanders around for a while trying to find direction. That's not unusual. Stocks that I like to the upside or downside are too far extended past their buy points for me. Palantir, as an example, with the exception of Google, and we'll see what Google does if it prints this week. Fortinet is another one, but that's early. That's just putting on the radar for something to watch to see if it does end up breaking. But we ride the wave the market presents, and right now it's not presenting much to go off of. I suspect that Thursday's PCE is going to be the big thing to watch, and that's going to dictate the direction. Um, the 10-year is telling us something as it relates to that. The dollar right now is telling us something as it relates to that. And there's just a lot of concerns that I talked about back in the beginning of May for having for June. Um, those are starting to materialize. So we'll see what happens. But that's what I have for you today. I hope you got something out of it. Sorry if this is a bit sort of melancholy. That's just there's nothing really exciting to talk about right now from my standpoint. So, but I hope it helps. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you have a great trading day. And by great, of course, I mean profitable. And I will see you in the next one.